The air around a quiet forest clearing seems ordinary enough. Leaves stir, sunlight filters through branches. Somewhere nearby, an insect lands on the underside of a leaf, unnoticed, unremarkable. Yet within moments, a process begins that is among the most precise, ruthless, and biologically sophisticated strategies ever produced by evolution. Inside the body of another living creature, an egg has been placed with surgical accuracy. Not randomly, not wastefully. It is positioned where nerves, organs, and immune defenses will be bypassed for just long enough. The host continues its life-feeding, growing, behaving almost normally while something else grows within it, quietly rewriting the meaning of survival. Parasitoid wasps do not kill quickly. They do not hunt for food in the way predators do. They do not merely infect like parasites. Instead, they occupy a biological space that seems to violate familiar categories. Their life cycle depends on another organism staying alive, often for days or weeks, until it no longer needs to be, across forests, fields, and even city gardens. This interaction plays out billions of times every year. Caterpillars, beetle, larvae, aphids, spiders, and flies become living incubators. Some hosts are chemically manipulated to stop molting. Others are guided into guarding the wasp larvae. In a few cases, the host's nervous system remains functional until the very end, allowing it to move and respond while its internal organs are systematically dismantled. This is not an evolutionary accident. It is not excess cruelty. It is a strategy refined over more than 200 million years, producing over 100,000 described species each with its own rules, targets, and biological tools. Venoms that paralyze without killing, viruses that suppress immune systems, eggs that sense oxygen gradients to find the safest place to develop. The deeper scientists look, the harder it becomes to draw clear moral or conceptual boundaries. These wasps shape ecosystems by controlling insect populations. They influence plant health, agriculture, and even the evolution of immune defenses in other species. Entire food webs are quietly balanced by their invisible work. Today, we're diving into the world of parasitoid wasps not as monsters, but as products of evolutionary logic taken to its extreme. What emerges is not horror for its own sake, but a profound challenge to how we define normal life, survival, and success in the natural world. Because once you understand how parasitoid wasps live, reproduce, and manipulate other organisms, one thing becomes impossible to ignore. Nothing about them fits comfortably within our expectations of biology. And that discomfort is exactly where the science becomes most revealing. The boundary between parasite and predator feels clear and human. Language: one feeds without immediately killing, the other kills to feed. These definitions offer comfort, order, and categories that make sense of the natural world. But parasitoid wasps exist precisely where those boundaries collapse. Unlike parasites that depend on long-term coexistence with their hosts, parasitoid wasps require death to complete their life cycle. And unlike predators, they do not kill outright. Their survival strategy depends on a narrow window where the host must remain alive, functional, and often mobile long enough for the wasp's offspring to develop safely. This evolutionary compromise is not vague or accidental. It is exacting. Fossil evidence places the emergence of parasitoid behavior deep in the Mesozoic era, alongside the diversification of flowering plants and insects. As insect populations exploded, so did competition. For some wasp lineages, hunting externally became inefficient. Larval survival was low. Eggs laid openly were eaten or starved. Evolution favored individuals that could place their offspring somewhere protected, nutrient-rich, and already alive. The solution was radical: turn another organism into the environment. This shift required more than behavioral change. It demanded a complete reworking of physiology. Ovipositors became elongated, flexible tools capable of piercing bark, soil, or living tissue. Sensory systems evolved to detect vibrations, chemical signatures, and even the internal movement of hidden larvae. What looks like cruelty from the outside is biologically an optimization problem being solved again and again. The result is not a single strategy, but thousands. Some species specialize in early-stage hosts, others in late-stage larvae. Some attack eggs before the host even hatches, others wait until their target is nearly full grown. Each approach reflects a trade-off between safety, speed, and resource quality. Crucially, parasitoid wasps did not evolve to kill hosts slowly. They evolved to control timing. Killing too early starves the developing larvae. Killing too late exposes them to predators or immune defenses. Natural selection favors precision measured in hours, sometimes minutes. This evolutionary space between feeding and killing creates pressures unlike anything faced by predators or parasites alone. Parasitoid larvae must navigate living tissue, avoiding vital organs until the final stages. Hosts, in turn, evolve immune responses specifically to encapsulate or poison wasp eggs. This arms race has driven innovations on both sides, shaping insect immunity and wasp countermeasures simultaneously. Some wasps inject not only eggs, but chemical cocktails that suppress immune reactions. Others introduce symbiotic viruses that alter host gene expression. These are not external infections, they are inherited tools, passed down with the wasp's own DNA from an evolutionary perspective. Parasitoid wasps are not aberrations, they are solutions, successful ones. Their diversity rivals that of beetles. Their survival rates, once hosts are secured, are remarkably high, and their influence ripples outward, controlling herbivore populations and stabilizing ecosystems. The discomfort they provoke comes not from rarity, but from clarity. Parasitoid wasps expose how evolution values outcomes over intentions. Survival is not gentle, it is efficient, and sometimes efficiency occupies the narrow, unsettling space between life and death. The act that defines a parasitoid wasp's life begins long before contact is made. Finding a host is not a matter of chance or abundance. It is a problem of specificity. Most parasitoid species can reproduce only inside a narrow range of hosts, sometimes a single species, sometimes a single developmental stage. An egg laid in the wrong body or at the wrong moment is not merely wasted, is lethal to the offspring. In dense vegetation or underground tunnels, vision is often useless. Instead, parasitoid wasps rely on a layered sensory world shaped by evolution. Chemical trails left by feeding insects guide them through forests and fields. The faint vibrations of chewing larvae travel through plant tissue, detectable by specialized receptors in the wasp's legs and antennae. Some species can distinguish between a host that is already parasitized and one that is untouched. Sensing subtle chemical markers left behind by previous wasps, for species that attack concealed hosts, precision reaches extraordinary levels. Certain wasps probe tree bark or soil with ovipositors longer than their own bodies, tapping rhythmically until internal movement confirms the presence of a larva. Others can detect carbon dioxide gradients produced by respiration, allowing them to locate hosts buried centimeters beneath the surface. But finding a host is only half the challenge. Choosing when to strike is just as critical. A host too young may not provide enough nutrients. A host too old may soon pupate or develop defenses that make survival impossible. Parasitoid wasps solve this by synchronizing their reproductive timing with the life cycles of their hosts, sometimes to astonishing precision. In agricultural fields, some wasp species emerge within days of pest insects hatching. Their own development calibrated to seasonal cues like temperature and daylight. Once contact is made, the act of egg-laying is swift and deliberate. The ovum is not simply a needle, it is a sensory organ capable of tasting internal fluids and navigating around organs. In some species, the wasp pauses mid-insertion, adjusting position to avoid vital structures that would kill the host prematurely. In others, the egg is placed directly beside nerve clusters or fat bodies that will later nourish the larvae. There is no hesitation. Evolution has stripped away anything unnecessary. The wasp does not inspect its victim afterward. There is no guarding, no revisiting. Survival depends on trust in the machinery shaped by countless previous generations. Yet hosts are not passive. Many insects have evolved thickened cuticles, aggressive behaviors, or immune cells designed to surround and destroy foreign eggs. In response, some wasps inject venoms that temporarily paralyze the host, preventing defensive reactions during the critical first moments. Others coat their eggs in substances that make them invisible to immune detection. Each successful egg represents a rare alignment of timing, anatomy, and chemistry. Most parasitoid wasps lay dozens or hundreds of eggs in their lifetime because failure is common. Precision does not guarantee success, it only makes survival possible. In this silent exchange, no single act looks extraordinary. But taken together, across millions of years and species, host selection reveals a form of biological expertise that rivals any predator's hunt. It is not strength or speed that matters here, it is accuracy. Once the egg is placed, the most dangerous phase begins. For the host, but for the developing wasp. Inside a living body, survival depends on control. The host's immune system is designed to detect and destroy foreign invaders. Left unchecked, it would surround the egg with specialized blood cells, suffocating or poisoning it within hours. Parasitoid wasps survive this, not through brute force, but through biochemical negotiation. Many species inject venom alongside their eggs. Unlike the venoms of predators, these compounds are not meant to kill. They are calibrated to disrupt specific physiological pathways, slowing movement, halting development, and suppressing immune responses. In some hosts, venom temporarily paralyzes muscles, preventing defensive thrashing during egg laying. In others, it alters hormone levels, freezing the host in a particular developmental stage so it cannot molt or pupate before the wasp larvae are ready. But venom alone is often not enough. Some parasitoid wasps carry viruses, polynoviruses, that exist nowhere else in nature. These viruses do not replicate independently. They are produced only inside the wasp's reproductive tissues and injected into the host during oviposition. Once inside, they enter host cells and alter gene expression, effectively rewriting immune responses from the inside. Cells that would normally attack the egg are reprogrammed to ignore it. Metabolic pathways shift, redirecting nutrients toward tissuestith larvae will later consume. This relationship is not incidental. The viral DNA is permanently integrated into the wasp's genome. Each generation inherits not just the ability to lay eggs, but an entire molecular toolkit designed to disable another organism's defenses. It is one of the most striking examples of evolution blurring the line between organism and weapon. As the larvae hatch, they do not feed indiscriminately. Early stages avoid vital organs, consuming fat bodies and non-essential tissues first. This is not a restraint in any moral sense. It is a developmental necessity. Killing the host too early would collapse the environment the larvae depend on. Growth is paced, synchronized with the host's continued survival. Meanwhile, the host behaves almost normally. It feeds, it responds to stimuli. In many cases, it grows larger than it otherwise would have. Its altered physiology now serving the needs of something else. From the outside, nothing appears wrong. This internal balance is fragile. If the host mounts a delayed immune response, larvae may be encapsulated and die. If environmental stress weakens the host, development can fail. Parasitoid success is never guaranteed. It is the product of finely tuned interactions that can unravel with small changes. What emerges from this process is not chaos, but control achieved chemically, invisibly, and temporarily. The host is neither alive in full autonomy nor dead. It exists in a state that evolution has carved out precisely because it works. Here, survival is not about overpowering an enemy. It is about managing a living system from within, long enough to complete a life cycle that depends on someone else's continued breath. In some cases, control goes beyond chemistry and into behavior. The host does not simply remain alive, it becomes useful as parasitoid larvae grow. Their needs change. Protection becomes more important than concealment. At this stage, killing the host outright would expose the developing wasps to predators and environmental stress. Instead, evolution has produced a solution that is both subtle and deeply unsettling. The host is altered, but not destroyed. Certain caterpillars parasitized by braconid wasps continue feeding normally while larvae develop inside them. Larvae are ready to emerge. They chew their way out and spin cocoons nearby. The caterpillar does not flee. It does not resume feeding. Instead, it remains positioned over the cocoons, thrashing violently at approaching predators. Its body is weakened, its future gone. Yet its defensive reflexes persist now, serving a different organism entirely. This behavior is not voluntary. Chemical signals released by the larva interfere with the host's nervous system selectively, preserving movement while suppressing feeding and escape responses. The caterpillar becomes a living shield, guarding the next generation until it eventually dies. In other systems, manipulation is quieter, but just as precise. Some parasitoid wasps alter the host's response to light or gravity, guiding it to sheltered locations before emergence. Others interfere with molting hormones, preventing the host from transforming into a life stage that would kill the larvae. The host's body follows instructions it did not evolve for. Executing a program written by another species, these changes do not require consciousness or awareness. Insects operate through neural circuits and hormonal feedback loops. Parasitoid wasps exploit this architecture, targeting key nodes where small chemical changes produce large behavioral effects. From an evolutionary standpoint, this is not mind control, it is circuit modification. The host's immune system, nervous system, and metabolism are all constrained by trade-offs shaped over millions of years. Absolute defense is too costly. Absolute flexibility is impossible. Parasitoid wasps survive by finding the narrow spaces where intervention works. What makes these interactions remarkable is not their cruelty, but their consistency. Across unrelated wasp lineages, similar strategies evolve again and again. This convergence suggests strong selective pressure toward host manipulation as a survival advantage. When larvae that induce protective behavior survive at higher rates, those traits persist. Yet even this strategy has limits. Manipulated hosts are vulnerable to environmental changes. Temperature shifts can disrupt chemical signaling. Predators may learn to avoid guarded cocoons altogether. Hosts evolve countermeasures, reducing susceptibility or altering developmental timing. The balance never settles. From the outside, these interactions are nearly invisible. A leaf-chewing caterpillar, a cluster of pale cocoons, a brief flicker of movement. Nothing dramatic announces the transfer of control. But beneath that surface, evolution has produced a system where one organism temporarily rewrites another's purpose. This is not domination in the human sense. It is dependency refined to the point where survival requires another life to continue just long enough. And in that narrow window, the familiar idea of an individual organism begins to dissolve, replaced by something more complex, a shared, biological process driven forward by natural selection, indifferent to which body carries it next. Parasitoid wasps rarely draw attention, yet their cumulative effect shapes entire ecosystems. Their influence is not dramatic or visible in the way large predators are, but it is persistent, diffuse, and mathematically profound. Wherever insects exist in large numbers, parasitoids are quietly regulating who survives long enough to reproduce. In forests, parasitoid wasps reduce outbreaks of leaf-feeding caterpillars that could otherwise strip trees bare. In grasslands and wetlands, they suppress populations of flies, beetles, and aphids, preventing any single species from overwhelming the system. These interactions do not eliminate hosts, they thin them, redistributing survival across generations. The result is not absence, but balance. This balance emerges without coordination. Each wasp acts only in the service of its own reproduction. Yet collectively, their selective pressure alters the evolutionary trajectory of entire insect lineages. Hosts that mature to slowly become easy targets. Those that reproduce too quickly exhaust resources. Over time, life histories shift in response to parasitoid pressure, favoring traits that shorten vulnerable stages or enhance immune defenses. Agricultural systems reveal this dynamic with unusual clarity. In monoculture fields, pest insects often thrive because natural checks are removed. When parasitoid wasps are reintroduced, sometimes deliberately, the effects can be striking. Populations of crop-damaging insects decline, not through mass death, but through sustained reproductive suppression. The ecosystem regains a form of regulation that synthetic chemicals often fail to replicate. What makes parasitoid wasps especially effective is their specificity. Many target only one or a few host species, reducing collateral damage. This precision reflects their evolutionary history. A wasp adapted to a particular host is bound to that host's fate. If the host disappears, so does the wasp. This tight coupling discourages overexploitation. Killing every available host would be self-defeating. Yet this dependence also makes parasitoid wasps sensitive indicators of ecological disruption. Habitat loss, climate shifts, and pesticide use can sever the timing between wasps and their hosts. A temperature change that accelerates host development by just a few days may leave wasps emerging too late. Eggs find empty niches, entire lineages falter quietly. Despite their importance, parasitoid wasps are often overlooked in conservation efforts. They lack the visibility of pollinators or the charisma of vertebrates, but their absence would be felt indirectly and relentlessly. Through cascading changes in insect populations and plant health, in evolutionary terms, parasitoid wasps occupy a stabilizing role, not because they aim to, but because natural selection favors systems that persist. Their strategy lethal, but delayed, precise but limited fits into ecosystems without collapsing them. They remind us that survival does not always depend on dominance. Sometimes it depends on a restraint built into biology itself. And sometimes, the organisms that matter most are the ones almost no one sees, working quietly within the narrow margins that keep living systems from tipping too far in any direction. There is a temptation to see parasitoid wasps as an evolutionary endpoint, as if biology has pushed itself to a moral or functional extreme and stopped there. But the deeper scientists look, the more these insects reveal not answers, but boundaries where evolution approaches its limits without ever fully resolving the tensions it creates. Parasitoid strategies are effective because they are narrowly focused. Each depends on precise timing, stable environments, and predictable host biology. When any of these conditions shift, the system begins to fray. Climate change alters seasonal cues. Urbanization fragments habitats. Agricultural chemicals disrupt the chemical communication that parasitoid wasps rely on to locate hosts. The same specialization that makes these wasps so effective also makes them fragile, researchers studying parasitoid host systems increasingly encounter unanswered questions. How do larvae avoid triggering immune responses for weeks, then suddenly survive the host's collapse? How do hosts remain behaviorally functional while internal tissues are consumed? In many cases, scientists can describe what happens, but not fully explain how such fine control is maintained without catastrophic failure. Even the polynoviruses that underpin many parasitoid strategies raise deeper uncertainties. These viruses blur the distinction between organism and tool, between genome and environment. They evolve alongside wasps, yet cannot exist independently. Are they separate entities or extensions of the wasp itself? Evolution offers no clear definitions, only workable outcomes. What parasitoid wasps ultimately expose is not cruelty but indifference. Natural selection does not optimize for comfort, fairness, or clarity. It optimizes for continuation. Life persists by exploiting what already exists, reshaping other organisms into temporary solutions. The host survives just long enough. The larvae develop just sufficiently. The balance holds until it doesn't. For humans, this challenges deeply held assumptions about individuality and autonomy in nature. We tend to see organisms as discrete units acting independently. Parasitoid systems show something else entirely: overlapping life cycles, shared physiological processes, and temporary biological mergers driven by evolutionary pressure. There is no villain here, and no lesson neatly resolved. Parasitoid wasps are not mistakes, nor are they models to admire. They are evidence that evolution explores every viable pathway, no matter how uncomfortable it appears to human sensibilities. As research continues, new species are described, new mechanisms uncovered, and new questions raised. Entire interactions likely remain undocumented, unfolding unnoticed in soil, leaf litter, and forest canopies. The more we learn, the clearer it becomes that our understanding of survival is still incomplete. Nothing about parasitoid wasps is normal, because normal is a human invention. In nature, there is only what works, for now. And in the quiet, precise lives of these insects, Evolution shows us just how far that logic can go without ever explaining why it stops where it does. In the end, parasitoid wasps do not ask us to be comfortable with nature, only to recognize that life persists, not by kindness or intent, but by mechanisms refined until nothing unnecessary remains.